Hello and welcome to this webinar on migrating from a server or a on-site NAS drive to fully being in the Microsoft 365 cloud. And we will have questions and answers at the end. So if anyone has got any questions, please do put them in the chat. So first of all, what do you need to do when you're first of all considering moving from an on-premise solution to fully going into the Microsoft cloud? So first and foremost, what data have you got that you're going to look at moving? So data being files, folders, whether it's Excel spreadsheets, photos, all of the different things that your business has accumulated over the years, but also uses on a day-to-day basis. Then secondly, it's any software. Now, you've got software like Excel, Word, Teams, all of that is easy software because it doesn't actually sit on an actual server. Whereas, for example, if you've got software that is actually running from that environment, so it could be Sage, it could be an ERP system, anything that's actually on the server that needs a server. Then the second point is you're going to be moving effectively all of your documents to SharePoint, but also then creating that similar domain of security. So currently, if you've got an on-site server, then that will have a domain where all of the computers and the users are connected to that, and it creates a secure bubble around everything. So we need to make sure that we are going to be recreating that in the Microsoft cloud environment. So also then all of your emails and any calendar information. Now, when you are looking at your data, just remember that the standard limit for Microsoft 365 is 1 terabyte. So anything over the top of that, it's not a problem, but you will have to pay extra per month. So how do we actually look at what happens when we are trying to plan a seamless migration? So we've broken it down into 5 easy steps for you. So, and this can, it depends on your actual setup now, is how long it's going to take and how complicated it will be. So, but just remember that currently, if you've got a server that's maybe 8 or 10 years old, then that's a lot of data, a lot of past maybe employees. There's going to be lots of old mailboxes. So there'll be lots of bits and pieces sort of lurking about that maybe you can't really remember or that you're not using on a day-to-day. But anyway, first and foremost, what we look at doing is we set up the new main tenant in Microsoft. So this is all based around your domain name. So and then what we do is we then create all of things like the security groups, because you need to make sure that if you've got different layers of security within your on-premise server, then we need to make sure that we are creating those in Microsoft 365. Otherwise, everyone will be able to see everyone's data. And within a business, there's always going to be private data, whether it's HR related, finance related, or maybe you've got different sectors of clients, depending on the industry that you're in. Then the second step is going to be where we look at migrating the emails. Now, you don't just move them from one place to the next. You effectively need to thoroughly sync the data. And this can be the hardest and most tricky part, especially if you've got large mailboxes and archives. Also, if you've got group folders and various rules. But generally, we'll sync both together before we actually move the user from using the old system over to the new system. Then the third element is migrating your data and the software. Now, once again, it's all about syncing it, testing it, making sure that it's definitely good without any corruption. You need to be so careful. If you were to just move it, copy and paste it, then you could end up losing data on both. So you need to be really, really careful. Also, unless it's going to be an Azure or a virtual desktop migration, you'll need to choose which machines the software may be transferred to. So currently, if you're using Sage as an example, and potentially if you've got a full-blown server, multiple people can use it. But you may only need one person to use Sage, in which case you could, in theory, move it over to their single machine. But if you are going to look at doing things like that, you need to make sure that you've got a really good backup process. And also, what happens if that person's on holiday or their machine dies? You just need to make sure that you've thought about every eventuality. So, but often it can just be that you need to go with a full virtual desktop migration rather than possibly files and folders and emails and things. But there are different types of migrations that we can do. But this essentially is just this overarching webinar is around going from an on-premise situation into the Microsoft Cloud. Then the fourth side, this is where we'll need to update all of your domain records and make sure that everything is now pointing towards Microsoft rather than pointing at your server or any other email provider that you're using. Also, it's around making sure that you've got security is really boosted up, because remember, you're going from your own private server or NAS drive to now a shared server that's on Microsoft's environment. So it comes with lots of different types of issues that you currently don't have. So you just got to remember that it's no longer your server, it's Microsoft's server. If they see something they don't like, they'll delete it. It's their server, it's not yours. So, and then the final setup. Now, this is often the bit that can really take the time, but it's almost the final bit. Now, this is the configuration of the devices for your users. So you'll need to set up things like the SharePoint folders and then the actual file path so they know how to access it. You'll need all new Outlook profiles, moving across email signatures, then setting up things like your shared folders, your rules, and all of the specific items that they have. And this has to be done individually per machine, so it can take quite a long time. So, and then the main advice that we would always say is always have a separate backup. A lot of people have this misconception that if you're moving to Microsoft servers, then they're suddenly going to be amazing and they will never get hacked. Microsoft is one of the number one places that hackers want to try and hack. Now, if you've got everything, all your eggs in one basket, and Microsoft gets hacked, guess what? You can no longer work. You may lose the data. It could cause huge issues. You could be down for days and days and there'll be nothing you can do about it. So always have a separate cloud backup. Microsoft recommend this, but any part of cybersecurity, you should never have all your eggs in one basket. So always make sure that you've got a separate standalone cloud backup that's nothing to do with Microsoft. So it backs up all of the data within Microsoft, but it's not actually Microsoft's. So it's really, really important. But you've got to make sure that you've got that redundancy, because if not, something could happen and then it could really cause issues and huge impacts to your business. And that's definitely what we don't want. And if we really look at what are the possible issues that you may have if you're going to look at tackling this type of thing yourself. So data loss, file and data corruption, you could move it over and suddenly it won't work because it's connected somehow to other files and folders. You start changing that structure, the data won't know where to look, so it won't open properly, or inside it could just be all messed up. You've got duplication of data. Often user profiles won't sync. So whether you need to obviously make sure that you've got the correct licenses. So if you've got the wrong licenses, that can cause issues. And ultimately, this will all ripple down to the user and the business having downtime, which you definitely don't want. If you've got whenever we're looking at doing a migration, it's all about doing it in a controlled environment. And the worst that should happen really is the individual user may have maybe 30 minutes to an hour's disruption while you're switching them from the old profile, looking at the on-premise, over to the new Microsoft 365. So, but these are the main things that you can happen. So that's it in a nutshell, basically. So it's all about looking at what's on the server and then taking it in a stage approach to sync it fully with your new environment. And then when you're really happy and everything's there and it's working in tandem, then you start to move the users across so that you effectively have that break where you say, like, right, stop. You're no longer using the old. Everything's now on the new, and it's getting them using it, and it's doing it in a really timed approach. Certainly, if Syn-Star was to do it with you, this is where, depending on the number of machines that you've got, we've got multiple technicians that can all be scheduled and booked to help you at those certain pinch points when suddenly you need, right, let's try and get as many users over as we can, all within ideally a single day. So there's lots of different aspects, but the main thing is you've got your data in one place, you've got your emails and your calendars in another place, and then you've also got the software and what you're actually using. So you need to break all those down and make sure. So we hope you found that of use. Say if you did want to get in contact, that's my direct email address, and my LinkedIn, probably a great place to find me on LinkedIn, but also Syn-Star as a whole. We cover all of the main social media platforms, and it's all about great IT support, working with great UK businesses, and we are on a mission to take our clients on a journey to 100% uptime. So if you've got any questions, please do put them in the chat. Right, so what's involved in your, yes, we did say, so we can offer a free audit if we want to really go through everything that you've got that you're using the server for, and then just make sure that we come up with a plan to enable you to move it across. So, but as I say, we can look at reviewing that. I think that's the last of the questions. Oh, here we go. How much? Right, so if Syn-Star was to look at helping the migration, we have a fixed price for creating the tenant and the main Microsoft environment, and then we charge per hour for the users. And as I say, depending on your setup, usually each user between 30 to 45 minutes, maybe up to an hour per user, depending on the complexity of the user and what they're using their machines for. It really depends. All different users are very different, but usually half an hour to an hour per person to do all the reprofile and things like that, and a bit of training showing them how to use the new environment. So okay, great. Well, thank you very much for your time. And any questions, please do head over to syn-star.co.uk. Go to the contact page. You can contact us there. And yeah, we'd love to discuss how Syn-Star can start helping you look at migrating from an on-premise solution to the Microsoft 365 cloud.